They say life gets quieter after 60, and in some ways, that's true. The phone rings less. The days slow down. People stop expecting you to show up in the same ways. You spend more time in your own company, with your memories, your thoughts, your stillness. But here's what they don't tell you. Sometimes, that silence, it isn't peaceful at all. Sometimes, it's loud. Loud with regrets, with unfinished conversations, with the sound of doors you never opened, and the weight of things you've carried for far too long. I remember one morning, a simple morning, nothing special. The sun was just coming up over the trees in my backyard. Birds were waking up. The world was still. I had a warm cup of coffee in one hand, and something heavier in the other. Not physically, of course, but in here, in my chest, and I couldn't quite name it. You see, I had spent my whole life moving forward, always reaching for something, a goal, a purpose, the next mile marker. I was proud of that. Still am. But what I didn't realize was that while I was moving forward, I was dragging a whole lot behind me. Old stories, old wounds, things left unsaid, things I never forgave, not others, and not myself. It took me decades to understand that peace doesn't come when the noise dies down. Peace comes when you listen to what the silence is trying to tell you. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't ready to hear it at first, because when life finally slowed down, it didn't feel like rest. It felt like reckoning, like the past had finally caught up to me, pulled up a chair beside me, and whispered, "We're not done yet. So let me ask you something, from one soul to another. What are you still holding on to? Not out loud, not the things we tell other people. I'm talking about the quiet things, the little griefs you buried under years of routine, the mistakes you never forgave yourself for, the anger that doesn't burn anymore. It just lingers like smoke in an empty room. What if the reason you haven't found peace is because you haven't put down the weight you were never meant to carry?" That's where my story begins. Not in triumph, not in some grand realization, but in stillness, in silence, in the uncomfortable truth that sometimes we don't even know how heavy we are, until we finally stop and feel it. In the chapters ahead, I'm going to tell you about 3 things I finally let go of after 60. Things that had followed me through love and loss, through success and sorrow. And when I let them go, truly let them go, I didn't just feel lighter. I felt free. So stay with me. This isn't a story about regret. It's a story about release. And it starts right here, in the silence. I used to think the most dangerous trap was failure. Turns out, it was approval. You see, I spent a lot of my life chasing applause in rooms where no one was clapping. And what's worse, I kept showing up to those rooms, day after day, hoping someone, anyone, would notice. It started early. Maybe it always does. As a boy, I learned that if I said the right things, smiled at the right times, made myself useful, I'd be accepted. I didn't need to be loud, just good, quietly good, respectable, polite. A nice boy who didn't make waves. That habit stuck with me. Through school, through work, through relationships, I played the part. I listened more than I spoke. I nodded when I wanted to speak up. I chose the steady path over the honest one more times than I care to admit. And the applause? It came. Sometimes. But it never lasted. And so I chased it again. And again. And again. It wasn't until years later, long after the stage lights had faded and the phone had gone quiet, that I began to wonder, who am I performing for now? There was one night in particular that sticks with me. I was sitting out on my porch, just me and the crickets, watching the moonlight fall across the trees. The world felt still, almost sacred. I should have felt peace, but instead I felt hollow. That's when the question came. What if the people you're still trying to impress stopped watching a long time ago? That question hit me like a wave. I thought about my father, a stern man who rarely said, "I'm proud of you." I spent most of my life trying to earn those words. Even long after he passed, I was still trying, still wondering if he would have approved of the choices I made. I thought about colleagues, mentors, old friends, people whose opinions I had given too much weight, whose validation I believed I needed to be whole. I had been measuring my worth by mirrors that no longer reflected me. And the truth is, they weren't clapping. Not because I wasn't worthy, but because they had moved on. Or maybe they were never watching as closely as I thought. Maybe the applause I was waiting for was never mine to hear. That night, something shifted. I realized I had been living by a script I didn't write, shaped by expectations, fears, and invisible standards that didn't reflect who I truly was. And once I saw it for what it was, I made a choice. To stop performing. To stop editing myself to fit into boxes that were too small for my soul. To start asking, what do I want? What do I value? What feels true for me, not for them? Letting go of the need for approval didn't happen overnight. It took time, and sometimes I still feel its pull. But that moment, that quiet moment on the porch, was the first crack in the wall I'd built around my peace. And once the light started coming through, I knew I could never go back to the dark. So if you've been chasing applause in empty rooms, I ask you this. Whose voice are you waiting to hear before you give yourself permission to rest? Because maybe, just maybe, the only approval you ever needed was your own. In the next chapter, I'll tell you about something even heavier I had to let go of. It wasn't loud. It didn't shout. But it lived inside me for years. Anger. And it took the face of someone I never called, and the version of myself I didn't want to remember. Not all anger roars. Some of it whispers, softly, persistently, every single day. You may not hear it clearly, but you feel it, like a stone in your shoe, or a tightness in your chest when the house gets too quiet. Let me ask you something. Is there someone you never forgave? Not out loud, but deep inside? Maybe it's not someone else. Maybe it's you. This chapter is about a kind of anger I carried for years. The quiet kind. The respectable kind. The kind you can dress up in a smile and still take with you to Sunday service. It wasn't anger that broke things or shouted at strangers. No, this anger was smarter than that. It showed up in distance, in silence, in holding back. And most of all, it lived in a phone call I never made. There was a friend once, a good man, someone who meant something to me. We had a falling out, as friends sometimes do. Words were said, harsh ones. But even harsher was the silence that followed. I thought about calling him more times than I can count. Sometimes I even picked up the phone. But pride, or maybe fear, kept me from pressing that last button. Years passed. Then one day, I found out he was gone. Just like that. No second chance. No late-night talk to patch things up. Just the weight of what never was. And in that moment, I realized, the anger wasn't just toward him. It was toward me. For waiting. For wasting time. For holding on to something that had already done enough damage. That's when I understood something that changed me. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about setting yourself free. You see, that quiet kind of anger? It keeps you small. It builds walls where bridges could be. And most of all, it robs you of peace in moments that should be yours to enjoy. I started letting go of anger that day, not all at once, but piece by piece. I forgave people who never said sorry. I forgave the version of me who didn't know better. I even forgave the silence, because it taught me something the noise never could. We don't always get one more chance. But we do get this one. Right now. So if you're holding on to something, a resentment, a wound, a phone call you never made, I hope this story reminds you that it's not too late to let go. Not too late to forgive. Not too late to be free. Because peace doesn't come when everything's perfect. It comes when you finally make space for it. Inside the quiet. Stop, stop, stop. Before we continue, I want to take a brief pause. Let me know in the comments, where are you watching or listening from? And have you ever experienced something similar in your own life? A moment when you realized something had to change? If this story speaks to you, I invite you to subscribe. There's more to come, and I'd be honored to have you on this journey. Now, let's continue. I used to believe that if I planned well enough, worked hard enough, worried long enough, I could keep the storms away. Like life was a giant chessboard, and if I moved the pieces just right, I'd win. No surprises. No pain. No chaos. But life doesn't play by our rules. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to control everything, only to lose what mattered most anyway? That's a hard lesson, but one I had to learn, the slow way, the painful way. You see, I was a planner. I was always 10 steps ahead, thinking about what might go wrong and how I'd fix it before it did. I called it being responsible. Truth was, I was afraid. Afraid of loss, of failure, of being blindsided by something I couldn't handle. And then, it happened anyway. There was someone in my life I loved dearly. She was strong, the kind of strong that didn't ask for help. But I saw the cracks before anyone else did. I tried to fix things, offered advice, encouraged her to slow down, take care of herself. I even prayed, not just once, but every day, as if my prayers were puzzle pieces that could hold her together. But the phone call still came. She was gone. Sudden, unfair, unthinkable. And in that moment, all my planning, all my preparing, all my worrying, none of it mattered. I sat in that grief like a man who just realized the steering wheel he'd been gripping for decades wasn't attached to anything at all. It broke me. But over time, it also freed me, because I finally saw what control really is. An illusion. A beautiful lie we tell ourselves to feel safe. And surrendering that illusion, it didn't make me weaker. It made me softer, kinder, more present. I started to trust more. Not blindly, but deeply. I trusted that some things are beyond me. I trusted that not every storm is mine to stop. And more than anything, I started trusting myself. That whatever came, I would face it. With courage. With grace. With open hands. So now, when life throws the unexpected at me, and it still does, I no longer rush to control it. I pause. I breathe. I remind myself. The goal isn't to control the storm. It's to stay steady within it. If you've been gripping the wheel too tightly, if you've been losing sleep over things you can't predict or prevent, I hope this chapter reminds you that peace isn't found in having power. It's found in surrendering the need for it. And in the stillness that follows, you might just discover a strength that no plan could ever give you. I've done a lot of talking in this story, about my regrets, my lessons, my letting go. But today I want to say something I learned not from looking inward, but from looking around. Because I'm not the only one who's had to let go to move forward. Far from it. Over the years I've met people, ordinary folks, quiet heroes, who carried things heavier than I could imagine. And yet, somehow, they found a way to set those burdens down and keep walking. There was a man I met once in a coffee shop in Louisiana, an old veteran, grey beard, thick hands, quiet eyes. We struck up a conversation. He told me he spent years angry at the world for what it took from him, and what it gave him in return. Said he lost a part of himself overseas, and when he came home, nobody noticed. But then one day, he said, he stood in front of a mirror and asked, "How long am I going to keep living a life shaped by pain someone else gave me?" He told me he didn't have an answer, but he started writing letters. Not to anyone else, to himself. One for every year he felt robbed. One for every name he couldn't forget. And with each letter he let go, not of the memories, but of the weight. That man smiled when he told me that story. A soft smile. Not because the past didn't matter, but because he finally mattered more than the past. Then there was a woman I met on a train, years ago. She was in her 70s, carrying a sketchbook in her lap and a quiet sort of sadness in her eyes. We talked, and I learned she used to be a painter, a gifted one. But when her husband passed, she stopped. Said the grief took her color away. Grief, she told me, is a house you can visit, but you can't live there forever. One day, she picked up a pencil again. Not because the pain was gone, but because she didn't want it to be the last thing she created. That sketchbook in her lap. It was full. Faces, landscapes, pieces of her soul, drawn not in spite of the loss, but because of it. Those stories. They changed me. They reminded me that letting go doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just a decision made quietly, with no audience. A choice to live with softness, even when the world gave you reasons to harden. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is, "This is not mine to carry anymore." So I started listening more, to strangers, to old friends, to people I might have once walked past. And what I found is this. We're all carrying something, but the ones who seem the lightest are often the ones who finally set it down. So if you're listening to this, and you think you're alone in your struggle, you're not. There's strength in your story, and peace waiting on the other side of what you're still holding. In the final chapter, I'll tell you how these stories, theirs and mine, led me to a deeper truth. That peace isn't something you find. It's something you become. Peace isn't a place you find. It's a person you become. And I didn't understand that until late in life, after the applause faded, after the regrets settled, after the silence got loud enough for me to finally listen. I used to think letting go would make me less strong, less in control, less connected to the people and moments that shaped me. But I was wrong. Letting go didn't make me smaller. It made me lighter. It didn't make me weaker. It made me free. It gave me space, not just in my days, but in my soul. And when you clear that space, something beautiful happens. You start to hear your own voice again, not the one shaped by what others expect or what the past demands, but the voice that's been waiting, quietly, for you to come home. I let go of the need for approval, and I found a voice that finally sounded like me. I let go of anger, and I uncovered compassion, not just for others, but for myself. I let go of control, and I discovered trust, in life, in love, in whatever comes next. And through the stories of others, strangers, friends, silent teachers along the way, I realized this truth. We are all becoming, every day, not by what we hold on to, but by what we're brave enough to release. Now, I know you may be holding something, too. Maybe it's a memory, a grudge, a fear. Maybe it's the feeling that time has passed you by, and it's too late to change. But let me tell you something from a man who's lived a long time and made more than his share of mistakes. It's never too late. Not to forgive. Not to begin. Not to become. You don't have to carry the weight anymore. You don't have to keep pretending. You don't have to wait for peace to find you, because peace isn't something out there. It's something you choose to become. So as I close this chapter, and this story, I'll leave you with a question. What could you let go of today, to become the person you were always meant to be? Not perfect, not finished, but free. I may be older now, but I've never felt more myself. And if you're willing to loosen your grip on the past, I believe you'll find the same is true for you. Take a breath, let go, and become peace. It's been waiting for you all along. The end. If this story touched something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to let go of something heavy? Have you lived through a similar chapter in your life? Your stories matter, deeply, and I read every word because I believe in each and every one of you. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like. That way, you won't miss the next journey we take together. Wishing you a peaceful and meaningful day. And if you made it to the end of this story, write this phrase in the comments. I am ready to let go. That way, I'll know you're walking this path with me.